Our next panel will come up to the table. We have a group of people here, some who are working in homes for the homeless, and some are people who have experienced the whole 9 yards. And we will begin with a young woman who has had the experience personally, and we'll let her tell her own story. Jewel? You want to push the button and put yourself in live.
How's that? You'd think I could work a microphone. Chairman McDermott, Ranking Member Weller, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for allowing me to appear before you today on behalf of those who otherwise have no voice, America's homeless, disconnected, and disadvantaged youth. The issue of homeless youth is complicated by misperceptions about why kids become homeless. Many of us here today have probably seen youth homelessness, but really didn't realize that it was staring us in the face. Maybe you walked by a kid who was sitting on a bench, and rather than thinking he was homeless or someone who was forced into prostitution, say, in order to make enough money to eat every day, you thought he looked like maybe just a punk kid who ditched school and was waiting for his friends. You really have to consider what being homeless is like for a few confused, long, and lonely days. And the experience doesn't just last for a few days for most people. Consider spending years on the streets after being kicked out of your house by an abusive alcoholic mother. Consider being in foster care where your new foster parents don't seem to care whether you're there or not and never asked you or what you need. What if the home you've been placed in is abusive and dysfunctional? You may either run away because no one seems to care, or you are told at age 18 you have to leave because you are too old for foster care. There are no resources available to you, and you are now homeless. Think about your children or grandchildren. Think for a second about a 12-year-old girl. What if her first sexual experience didn't come at a time of her choosing, but after an uncle touched her and made her keep it a secret? Then the secret is exposed, the truth spirals out of control, forcing a needlessly ashamed and frightened girl onto the streets. These girls and boys do not choose to live on the streets or be homeless. It is the sad truth that they feel safer there. What is equally troubling is that many Americans look at someone's being homeless as the result of a choice he or she made, that they're lazy or that it is just a correctable condition because the United States is the land of so much opportunity. These are just a few of the reasons why I do not believe America's homeless youth population is made up of kids who leave home because they want to. Most homeless kids are on the streets because they have been forced by circumstances to think that they are safer there than in any home they once knew. Others may have reached the end of their economic resources or those of their families and are left trying to get out of poverty from the disadvantageous position of America's streets. I experienced homelessness firsthand. I moved out when I was 15 years old. Worked several jobs. I wasn't a lazy kid. It was just, I thought I could do a better job maybe than my parents. And I was able to actually get a scholarship to a performance arts high school, and was able, while being homeless, to kind of still go to a good school. Spring breaks were hard. Vacations, I would end up just hitchhiking around the country and street singing for money because they wouldn't let you stay on campus during the breaks. And after many twists and turns, I ended up in San Diego when I was 18. And I had a series of dead-end jobs, and finally one boss fired me because I wouldn't have sex with him, and he wouldn't give me my paycheck that day. And my rent was due, and my landlord kicked me out. And I thought I'll just stay. I had a little $200 car that a friend let me use, and I just slept in my car for the day, and it ended up lasting about a year. I was really sick at the time. I had sick kidneys and was turned away from every emergency room that there was, you know, to the point where you'd get blood poisoning because your kidneys weren't working, and I'd be throwing up in my car, and nobody would help. It lasted for about a year, and I was able to finally get out. I was, I'll never forget, I was once, record labels started coming to see me. I was singing in a coffee shop. I wrote music just to help myself feel better, and it seemed to make other people feel better, and they started coming to my shows. And Atlantic Records was going to come see me, and I was so excited. I went to Denny's, where I always washed my hair, in a little shallow sink. I had to fit my head in sideways, and I'd use the hand soap to wash my hair, and I was using paper towels to dry it off, and I was humming to myself because I was so excited that a label was coming to see me. And I looked up in the mirror, and there were two women backed up against the wall, and they were horrified. They looked at me just like I was a leper. And I suddenly got really embarrassed because I realized what I was and what I looked like to them. And as they walked out, the one woman said to the other, "Well, she looked pretty enough. I wonder how she ended up like that." And I wanted to tell them so bad, you're wrong about me. I'm an okay kid, and the label's coming to see me. And it ended up working out for me. Some research estimates that about 1 to 1.6 million youth experience homelessness each year. I personally would guess the number higher. The number of kids turned away from shelters every day, as well as the number of phone calls made to the National Runaway Hotline, indicate some estimates that may be even higher. Unfortunately, homeless kids are running from something, and that makes them difficult to find or to count as part of any single community. What is clear is that life in a shelter or on the streets puts homeless kids at youth at a higher risk for physical and sexual assault, abuse, physical illness, including HIV, AIDS. And as I heard testimony earlier with education, I was never taught grammar, which is odd because I'm a writer and I now make my living as a writer, but it just, every time they were teaching grammar to school, I just either showed up just after they finished the classes or just before they were starting, and then I was gone again. I went to probably 10 different schools, between the age of 8 and 16. So it really is true. Estimates suggest that 5,000 unaccompanied youths die each year as a result of assault, illness, or suicide, and that is an average of 13 kids dying every day on America's streets. And I was talking with Carissa earlier, who has an amazing story and an amazing accomplishment. The people prey on you. They know. I've never been more solicited and more approached than when I was homeless. And I grew up bar singing, so you'd think it would be hard to top. But when I was homeless, you're constantly being solicited. And a lot of times I knew a lot of girls that were stripping and prostituting because it was really the best solution they had for making money. Anxiety disorders, as you can imagine, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and suicide are all more common among homeless children. Previous studies of the homeless youth population have shown high rates of parental alcohol and drug abuse. Substance abuse, however, is not characteristic. It doesn't define most youth who experience homelessness. Despite all of the setbacks faced by homeless kids, there is room to be optimistic. Most homeless children tend to try and make it to school. Most do make it to school, at least for a period of time. If safe shelters, counseling, and adequate support were available for these kids, and if our schools and our job training programs were stronger, these children would be given opportunities to graduate high school and build the skills they need to go on to live healthy and productive lives. It's funny, my boyfriend of 9 years laughed when he met me because he always said I could end up in Wisconsin if I needed to on a shoestring with a stick of gum, but I didn't know how to do laundry when he met me. I didn't know how to do really simple, functional things, and you need to be taught that. You just aren't taught those things. You don't realize that that's what your parents are supposed to be teaching you. And as I prepared to be here with you today, I learned Congress is taking steps in the right direction this year by increasing the level of federal support for homeless youth-related programs. I understand the House of Representatives is poised to pass a $10 million increase for Runaway and Homeless Youth Act programs and a $5 million increase for education of homeless children and youth programs. This anticipated funding increase is crucial. I cannot tell you enough. Support for shelters and transitional living and housing programs is necessary if we are going to change the landscape for homeless boys and girls in America. Regrettably, I do also understand funding for street outreach programs may not receive an increase in funding this year. What I know about street outreach is that it is essential to dealing with the issue of youth homelessness. We need people who work hard to find these kids and point them toward help because we know that they will not be looking for adults. Adults most likely contributed to their situation in the first place. When they do seek help from adults, the system, police, they're just opening themselves up to be harmed and exploited or arrested again. I am passionate about the work in this area by Virgin Mobile USA and its regeneration movement in supporting the homeless youth street outreach programs of Stand Up for Kids and awareness-building efforts by Youth Noise. The regeneration is also supported by Virgin Unite, the Virgin Group's charitable arm created by Sir Richard Branson. The fact is that businesses and organizations working together are crucial to the success of federal programs, and broader support in this area is desperately needed. I would like to thank Congress for its help in raising awareness of issues surrounding homeless youth by introducing resolutions that designate November as National Homeless Youth Awareness Month. I look forward to their passage so we can all make November a success by demonstrating to these forgotten youth that Congress is listening, people do want to help, and that people care about their futures. Today is an opportunity to discuss important problems facing families and children across the country. As you begin examining ways to prevent youth homelessness, improve community-based intervention programs that support families and older adolescents, and assist youth aging out of foster care, it is my hope that your job becomes easier once the problem is absorbed into the consciousness of the American people. This country has to stop looking in the other direction on these most heart-wrenching and complex issues facing America's youth. Through greater awareness, people will view this as a problem with solutions. We must all work together to end youth homelessness in America. I am pleased to be here today, and I will do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.